Welcome to the Localization Fireside Chat. I'm Robin Ayub, your host. Join me for captivating conversations with industry leaders exploring localization, translation, and global communication. Ignite your curiosity as we expand your horizons through these conversations. So let's dive in together into the Localization Fireside Chat.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning to our returning viewers and listeners, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Localization Fireside Chat. My name is Robin Ayub. I'm the founder of the Localization Fireside Chat podcast and YouTube channel. We're an industry leader in broadcasting our voices to the industry. We meet with various thought leaders, industry influencers, to talk about their experiences, to talk about their ventures, to talk about their innovations. And today I am honored this morning to be joined by Chris D'Alessandri. Chris is a founding partner and a managing member of Owl Testing Software and Rubrica LLC. So I want to make sure that we give voices on our channel for companies that we think they have a lot of opportunity, they got a lot of innovation on the go, and there may be possibility for them in the industry. And I'm excited to get to know Chris. To be honest with our listeners this morning, that's my first time meeting Chris, is on our first dialogue here, first conversation. Happy to have had the opportunity to get connected on LinkedIn and get this conversation started. Chris, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the episode. Chris, glad to have you with me this morning.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. And yeah, as you said, it's our first time talking. So I'm looking forward to learning a little bit. I watched a few episodes of the podcast, so I have a little bit of an idea of what to expect, but not fully. So.
Great, excellent. Nothing like getting to know each other live online while we're recording. That's great.
Yep.
One of the things as we get started with, as we get started normally in our conversations, is we ask people, like, give us a little bit of background information on you. How did you get started in the business, and what drove you to it? First, we'll try to get to know you as a person, then you get started to try to get to know your business, and how does this gel with the language industry?
My name is Chris D'Alessandri. I've been working in testing software now for 23 years, so that's a big part of what I do. As we talked about a few minutes ago, we live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I just actually moved house. So that's been a big change this year. So it's been an interesting year for me in a lot of ways. Professionally, I got into doing Owl testing software with a partner of mine. We started out in 1999 doing a project for a public school district where we were going to do a speaking test for people. And that turned into a full-blown test management system. So that's the short of that. Does that give you some idea, or?
Yeah, it does. And it's in the software business, my understanding. You test software.
We test people, right?
So we test people using software.
Yeah, so you can build any kind of test that you want in our system. So, and it gets used a lot for language testing, for pre-employment screening, and things like that. So we have the ability to do human scored tests. You can wire it up to do an AI testing if you want to do that. You can do all kinds of different things.
And so does that cover various languages, Chris, or specifically to a certain number of languages, or does it matter the languages, or?
It does not matter. So you can do, a simulated oral proficiency interview type of test. You could record a video of you interacting with somebody and record somebody's response to that. So we have folks who test in literally, every language. It's the platform doesn't care about what language you're testing in.
So I'm assuming the testing is based on some sort of an algorithm to detect the positive, negatives, that kind of thing, the patterns, that kind of thing. So that's why it doesn't care about the language that's being spoken. Is it you rely on the logic more than the actual way of pronunciation? I don't know, or the way things are being said? No.
So our system, you can build a test, and then a human being is going to listen to your test. Let's say you take the test, and a human is going to listen to it, maybe somewhere else in the world, and they're gonna give you a score, probably on either the actual scale or the CEFR scale or something like that. On the other hand, we also have folks who have trained AIs specifically for their test, and we can ship it off to them. So instead of having that sent to a human rater, it goes to this AI, which does the scoring. But that's specifically tuned to that test. So that's
It sounds like like what we've been talking about on this channel, and some of the pieces of content opinions that I put out there years ago, is that human in the middle is always going to be well, not always, but for now, human in the middle, that hybrid model where you have not complete autonomous systems, meaning relying 100% on AI. You still have human listening, as you said earlier, qualifying, scoring, grading, etc., whatever on the on those tests. Do you envision at some point? I mean, I don't know. We don't want to get into technology evolution at this point, but since we're talking about technology, do you feel like human in the middle is the way to go, or do you feel it evolving? What's your vision on that aspect of things?
Well, it turns out that even if you're going to build a good AI model for speaking, you need hundreds and hundreds of thousands of speech samples, and you need very specific speech samples. So even if you are going to train an AI, you need a human to have done that work, a few 100,000 times of that analysis. So I don't think that, and that's very expensive, right? And you have to, so I don't think we're at a point where AI is going to take over scoring. I don't think AI can take over scoring for communicative abilities yet. I don't think the technology is there. Will it be in 10 years? I don't know. That's really, really hard to predict right now. But no, it's not there today, and it's not there, next year or probably even the next 3 years, I would say.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about your business model. You've created a set of services and technology around those services that you're currently selling. Let's talk a little bit about what's your business model? Like, who's your market? What's your vision for the company? How many, walk us through where you started and where you are right now and where you're going from a business perspective.
Sure. So we started out, as I said, working in schools. We started out in K-12 in the US. We expanded to doing more different types of testing, and we tried to stay in academia for a while. And it turned out that was just not a good business model for us. The sales cycle is very long with academia. It's not that we don't sell to academia still. We still have many customers, many clients who are, either in K-12 or in universities. But, we've moved to the point where we're about in business. So we've moved on to, we have a lot of clients who, like I said, do pre-employment screening. They do these harder types of testing. So if you want to do a sign language test, if you want to do a spoken test, you want to do a performance test, if you're, say, like a doctor's certification or something like that, where you have to actually perform, or you're interviewing a patient, those kinds of testing. So we've sort of specialized in those harder types of tests to do that are not like you're checking boxes, right? And I sort of see us continuing to go on in that direction, and really to expand into doing more and more with technology, right? More with video technology, more with those kind of things, and just offering a broader range of services that people probably didn't even know that they could get, right? Frankly, we have a lot of clients who come to us and like, oh, we didn't even know you could do this without having to have somebody sit down in a room and do an interview or whatever. So.
And so how is it, tell us the audience a little bit about the company size, how many employees you have, your locations, that kind of thing, just to give some visibility to the organic side of the company.
Sure. We're a relatively small company. Most of us are here in Pittsburgh. Up until COVID, we had offices out in, Scott Township, if you know where that is, in the Pittsburgh area. We currently have now decided to go completely remote. So everybody is remote. So we now have folks who are, in Maryland, in Virginia, in Wisconsin. So throughout the US, like I said, we're a relatively small company, less than 50 people. And we, have been around for 23 years and continue to do this, and are sort of evolving as the landscape evolves, right? As we try to
What's
kind of keep up.
from your employee from employee demographics? So who do you hire? Is it programmers mainly, project managers, linguists?
We do not, yeah. So we are not a language company, and I'm just like, I play one on TV, right? Like I know enough to be dangerous about it, but I don't. We do hire folks like that to, if we have a client who needs a test built or something like that, we can facilitate that sometimes with our other clients, but we don't generally. Our company is programmers. We have some marketing folks. We have support people for help desk and that kind of thing. But we're primarily IT.
And do you deal like with freelancers, contractors if you need them?
We definitely do, especially for things like when we've done localization, right? So we're localized into, 20, I think 25 different languages on the back end. So yeah, of course we hire contractors to do that. We've worked with contractors to do development of various pieces. We have an app. We've hired some contractors to work on the UI for the app and things like that. So yeah, of course.
And when you sorry, this conversation over coffee sometimes directions. It goes forward, it goes backward. So
Sure.
sorry about that.
No
But
worries.
the conversation that we just started earlier, like where you started with the first initial idea, was around the K-12 testing, etc. So what brought that on? Was your background in computer science, or how did you come across this?
Well, I actually majored in philosophy and English lit is what I majored in. But my first job coming out of school was doing programming. So I took a job doing that in the early 90s. And I had been writing code probably for about 10 years at this point. And a friend of mine and I thought, it was 1999. We wanted to start a business. So we thought we would do consulting where we would write software for people. And the idea being, for me at least, was we would find something that we could hold on to the intellectual property, but do it on the cheap for somebody, that kind of thing. And that's what we ended up doing. We ended up with this project for the Pittsburgh Public Schools. We developed a software for them, but we were able to keep the recording piece, so we were able to expand that out. Yeah.
Okay. And so now I've seen you connected to many people in the language industry. So how do you see the opportunity in languages? I know you mentioned that there's other opportunities outside the language industry, which you're currently involved in.
Sure.
And that's the beauty of, something that like what you're just doing. It's a horizontal service. It can go to every industry because some people at some point, at some places, they need your services, not necessarily specifically for the language industry, etc. So what's the connection with the language industry, and how much do you feel the language industry is important to you?
Well, it's sort of the main focus of our business. All along we've been able to do these audio recordings. So we have an entire rating piece built in. If you're familiar with a simulator or proficiency interview, we can build all that in very easily. And you can just, do a couple of recordings, upload those, and you can start testing. And it's very, very simple for you to do that. So that's been at the core of our business, and it will continue to be at the core of our business. We work with a university in Italy where they're doing screening. Their students have to be able to speak either German or English. They have to speak two of three, German, English, or Italian, I think at a B2 level, right? So they have to test them when they're coming in. So that's the kind of thing that we do is we work a lot with folks who need to do that kind of thing where they need to do language testing specifically.
Yeah. Excuse me. So what's next for you? Where do you see the opportunity here going forward? What's the evolution of your company, Owl Testing?
What's next, I think, is, we get more into app development. I really see people wanting, especially in, telephones penetrated into the market way faster than televisions did. So, when you're talking about doing testing in Asia, in a lot of places where they don't necessarily have the infrastructure of the wired internet, but they have a wireless internet. So I see us getting much more into apps and going down that road. I definitely see us getting more into, doing different types of testing, like I said, with the technology. And I can't say too much about the video stuff yet, but we're
Mhm.
interested in doing some things with that. So.
And so from the beginning till now, you've seen the company goes from, obviously you have founded the company, you and your partner, you've seen the company go from zero to where it is today. How was your journey? If somebody who out there from an entrepreneurial perspective wants to learn a few tips on that aspect, tell us a little bit about the journey, how you got here.
I would say it's difficult. I would say remember that you, as the one who's starting the business, you get paid last. So, especially when you're starting out in the beginning, right? And you're hiring people, they have to have confidence in you. They have to have confidence that the business is going to keep going. You have to have confidence that it's going to keep going. And, that's a hard thing to do. And the reason I'm talking a lot about that right now is I'm actually working with trying to mentor some folks and trying to help them get their business up and running. And it's really, just that perseverance, right? I mean, you really just have to kind of keep going. So that's one thing I would say is that that's a struggle. But I would also say that it's, I'm at a point in my career now where I don't think I could work for anybody else. I mean, I've been doing this for too long, and I enjoy it, and I enjoy being able to do a lot of the things that I've been able to do because I did start my own business. So.
Mm-hmm. And from has it always been a hockey stick sort of a trajectory in terms of growth, or did you see the sawtooth, I guess, episodes?
Of course. I mean, and that's one of the things that always happens with businesses, right? I mean, it just doesn't. That's just a fantasy. The hockey stick, right? How many unicorns are there in the world, right? So it's more like, the downturn in 2008, that was a bit difficult, and it's cyclical, right? I mean, it's just sort of, you make sales when people have money to make sales, and when the business is going, I haven't figured out a way to explain it yet as to how, like the business process, there's always unforeseen things that come along, and
Unpredictability, right?
exactly. And so you just have to be on top of it. That's just all you can do.
Now, talk a little bit about your sales and marketing. How are you structured to do sales and marketing? You have salespeople, you have sales team, you have marketing, and what do you target? What areas do you target?
So we just try so we have a sales team and a marketing team. We do more marketing than sales, to be honest with you. Our sales model is very much, if we can help you, we want to help you. If we can't, we will tell you that, this is not going to be a good fit for you. So we have folks who come to us frequently and they're saying, well, we need a learning management system. Well, that's not what we have. We have a test management system. It's not full-blown LMS. We have folks that come to us and say, I want to do paper scored testing, and I want to be able to, fill in these check boxes and things like that. And I say, well, we can't do that, So we we try and put out marketing materials that show the variety of things that you can do in our platform. And we really try and get folks to come to us, right? So we go to language industry things. I've gone to Actful and Neckful and, Calico and a bunch of different language organizations. I go and I present at those things. And it's more, I would say, more organic and more focused on the internet at this point is how we do our marketing, because that's where everybody is. I mean, that's,
In one of my previous episodes, actually, not the last episode I did, the one before with Carrie Fisher, you can just look that up. We talked about the need to teach kids a new language or another language in school, and how that opens a whole bunch of opportunities for kids. And I'm not sure if you have kids, but we've noticed is that somebody like me, for instance, I speak 3 languages, and I did not just speak 3 languages. Now I spoke 3 languages when I was young, and learned them at an early age. And the opportunity that opens up, and the Carrie Fisher, which is the episode prior to the last one, she's also mentioned Actful, where you're engaged at that level in terms of changing the policies, etc. And the U.S. is different than Canada in terms of language policies, etc. So how's that been? Like, do you get involved on the policy side with, trying to influence the policy a little bit so you can affect your business? I mean, every business does some of that to as much as they can to their own reach, I guess. You're not trying to move the mountain in some cases. Sometimes you're talking locally to people. Sometimes you're talking to, as you mentioned, K-12 earlier. Does that help or it doesn't help?
That's a very interesting question. So when we started in the early 2000s, yes, I got much more involved. I went to ACTFL. I tried to talk to people there and learn. Really, for me, it was just learning about how this all works, right? And then we did try and advocate for what we thought was perhaps a better way to do some testing and things like that. And really what I found was, as a business, we decided to go the other direction and be flexible. So if you want to use the European Common Framework, go for it. If you want to use the ACTFL scale, go for it. And we decided that we, as a business, would rather be agnostic as to what your choice is, to how you do that, because it's just such an uphill battle in this country to get people to do language testing in a good and really useful way, and to do education. Again, it's kind of, as you said, you speak 3 languages. I spent 5 weeks in Spain this summer, and I took Spanish classes while I was there again for the 10th time or whatever, to try and get a little bit better, because I do believe that's important, to be able to speak another language, at least one. But I don't think that policy in this country is going to change, and so we intentionally market outside of the United States for that very reason.
Where are you going in Spain? My wife and I were about to go to Spain at the end of September, and we're going for 3 weeks. That's our second time, I believe, on vacation in Spain, and we enjoy visiting, etc. So where did you go in Spain?
We were in Santander most of this trip, almost the entire time, which, because we have to travel, my wife is a teacher, and so we have to travel in the summer. That's until she retires. And so Spain is god awful hot in the summer in the south, so we stay in the north,
Yeah, we're going to the south, actually. We're going to Marbella, Malaga area.
Okay.
And we're going to spend some time in Barcelona too. We're taking the whole family with us, so hopefully I get some time to enjoy it. Yeah, but Spain is a lovely, lovely country. But speaking of languages, and I was just talking about this a few episodes ago, is that when you've learned 1 or 2 languages at the beginning of your life in the education system, something happened to the brain. And there was some research on this one. I can't quote them right now, but I'm just speaking on a personal experience that once I've learned 1 language in school, what ended up happening is, if I listen to another language, I automatically can think now that I need to learn that language. So when I go to Spain and I go to Spanish-speaking countries, even though I'm not, I don't speak Spanish, I feel like a week or 2 in my visit, I'm starting to, use the common words, use the common phrases, and I didn't really go to learn it anywhere. So your brain gets, from a chemistry perspective, I believe, it gets programmed that way, I think, which is helpful.
Yes, I agree. And it just being there in the country, that is very helpful to being able to pick up the language, for sure.
Correct. Correct. Now, on the topic of OWL testing software relationship with the language industry, what is it that you like to see? Obviously, most of our audience are from the language industry, and some of them, even though they're not from the language industry, they are involved in language industry in somehow. What would you like them to hear from OWL testing software in terms of what do you like them to be engaged with you on?
Well, I would like to say it is possible to do a simulated oral proficiency interview, and it is a valid test if you do it right. And it's a lot less expensive than you think it is, and it gets you much better results than a lot of these other types of testing do. That would be the thing that I would say. I think a lot of people don't realize that it is, one, valid, and two, I think a lot of people don't realize that you can do it as easily as you can. It's like, it's just, it doesn't have to be mailing tapes around or whatever people think it is. I don't know.
Mailing tape around. That sounds so 1980s.
Well, that's what they were doing in 1999. That was the problem that we solved, right? They were mailing tapes around between teachers because teachers couldn't score their own students because there's bias. And so they would mail the tapes around. And so we built a web-based system to replace that. And, doing an audio recording through a web browser was not easy to do in 1999. So that's.
So is there a possibility, like, let's say, as you know, I mean, for our industry, most of our industry is from an employee perspective, there's about 19,000 companies out there that does language services of some sort, according to CSA research, and around the world. And most of those companies employs, project managers, sometimes reviewers, but the majority of the employees internal to those companies are project managers. And the linguists and the interpreters, whoever else, is on the outside of the organization. So part of the qualification process to most of these individuals that they would like to work with these 19,000 companies is to go through some sort of a testing, some sort of qualification. If you are an interpreter or you are a translator, etc., especially if you are an interpreter, I'm assuming there's a language speech testing that needs to take place. And I'm assuming this way you guys get involved, one would think. Or do you get involved in every one of those functions?
We can be at any of those points, right? So currently we get involved, like there are certification boards that use our platform to deliver tests for certification of interpreters for various things. There are school districts, there are in Canada, some of the governmental agencies use our platform because they need to hire translators for the court system or whatever. So we can be involved at any point in there. And you'd be surprised at how complicated people can make testing. And how differently they all want to do things. And so from a government perspective, we kind of know what the boxes are you have to check off, right? Because there are a bunch of them, a bunch of requirements that you have. And for lower stakes testing, maybe for, pre-employment hiring or something like that, there's different boxes you have to check off. So we can help you with all of those kind of things as well. So yes, we would be involved anywhere throughout that cycle.
And just so our audience know that if you are interested in taking a test using your platform, I'm assuming all this is being done via the internet. You probably need a laptop and a microphone, and I'm assuming that's it. That's all you need at this point, right?
Yeah, we usually recommend headphones, right? It's usually the thing that we recommend. Depending on the test, which the company may want it to be proctored. So you would have a webcam, you would either have somebody live sitting on the other end, or you would use an AI proctoring service that would watch them take the test and record their screen and all that. So yeah, that's basically all you need is a laptop or even a phone, as I was saying, for some of them, for some of the tests, you can just use a phone.
There was and I don't know if you guys are involved in that or not, post-COVID, there was quite the growth, or during and post-COVID, growth in the gaming industry. And not just in the gaming industry, that's the entertainment side of things, but that whole moving to remote has accelerated that whole, I'm assuming in your business that got impacted quite a bit because everybody went remote and everybody now can't go to a room somewhere and get tested. They need to figure out a way remotely to get tested. And in gaming, that exploded because the localization for gaming side of things globally, because everybody retrenched into their, the consumption of those games has gone up like through the roof, and therefore everything attached to it. So how does that impact you, early on, during, and post-COVID?
Early on, we were scrambling to just like everybody else, and we were trying to help schools out, basically, because we were trying to offer really inexpensive solutions for K-12 just to try and help people out so that they could get through the end of the school year. So we did some of that. Then during COVID, we really things kind of evened out and people got more used to doing on remote testing, as you said. So they were getting used to it. This was not, there had been a lot of resistance from a lot of people prior to this. It's like, oh, well, you can't do that. We need them to come in. We need them to be here. Well, it turns out you didn't, right? And so we had a lot of people move to remote testing. And so that was actually very good for us in terms of that. And then post-COVID, I would say things have not really slowed down. Things are pretty much the same because it's just the new normal.
So basically, there was some challenges early on. You've got and that's not just necessarily for as it pertains to your business, it's across the globe. Those management style that says, I want to see you in the office in order for me to ensure that you are doing a good job versus I'm going to trust you if you go home and take your laptop with you. And so that has shifted the mentality of how we manage employees and staff, I guess. And we were forced to do that globally, all industries, because of what was going on at the time. And then during COVID, I noticed that globally, that companies, if you look at their financial statements on the stock market, et cetera, they're all doing better because COVID allowed them to reduce some of the costs associated with their operating expenses. And so it improved a lot of financial statements. And then post-COVID, so we got used to the new environment, got used to the flexibility that COVID allowed us to, I hate to say that, the management style that COVID allowed us to explore and to fine tune a little bit. It allowed us to do a little bit better businesses wise.
Yeah, I mean, for us, the transition to doing remote work wasn't a really hard one. I've been in IT now for, over 30 years. And, I was saying in the 90s, I'm like, why do we even have to come into the office? There is no reason for us to be here. We're all writing code. We all have our headphones on. We're just, working away. And anytime we check in with each other, it's, through the server or whatever. So I was like, why do we need to be here? So that's sort of always been my attitude. And we kept an office really just so people would have a place to come in and exchange ideas more than anything else. And, for that reason only. And nobody was ever really required to be in the office. So that wasn't a big deal for us because that's just sort of the culture that we've had. But I do think, yes, we now don't have an office because nobody wants to go back to the office. So I'm experimenting with like using some co-working spaces, doing some things like that. But yeah, I think it has changed things. It has changed things a lot. I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything new that nobody's heard before, but.
Did it give you the flexibility to hire skills in different regions that you probably didn't think about hiring them in the past?
Yeah, I would say that's true. And I would say that people were also more willing to be like, oh, sure, I can work 100% remotely. I think people were more comfortable with that. As I guess I was telling you maybe at the beginning of this or before we started, we now have folks in Maryland and Virginia and Wisconsin and, kind of all over the place. Whereas before pretty much everybody was within, 50 miles of Pittsburgh probably. So, yeah.
So to wrap it up, I guess I want to make sure that people understand or the audience understand clearly what OWL testing software, if you can summarize the raison d'etre, I guess, the reason of business that you have. And so for our audience to associate, if I need this type of service, I'm going to go to OWL testing software. So what would you tell them?
What I would say is if you need to build any kind of test, anything at all, if you need to test anybody for any reason whatsoever, if it's training, if it's pre-employment, if it's certification, if it's in academia, whatever. And we can do way more than you think that we can do, and it can all be done online. And so, the reason we exist is to make things easy for you. I mean, that's really the reason we exist.
And so if somebody needs to reach out to your company, Chris, what's the best way to reach out to them?
You can email me directly at Chris, CHRIS, at OWL, as in the bird, OWL, TS, testingsoftware.com. That's, you can email me directly. You can go to our website. It's OWLTS.com. That's a great place to go. If you want to get in touch with any of our support, there's a form on the help pages, which are also all available online. So there's lots of ways to get in touch with us. So.
And you can connect with Chris on LinkedIn. He's open to connect with fellow professionals on LinkedIn as well. I connected with LinkedIn with Chris pretty quickly, and we got a conversation going. I appreciate that, Chris. Your openness to communicate, etc., online. That speaks volume to me. That's how business is conducted, and in this conversation will not take place if it wasn't for your willingness to communicate and to be open to have a conversation with somebody. So thank you for that. And for our audience, I really want to thank Chris for joining me this morning. If you need any testing of any sort, I hope I'm talking about education testing or education testing as well, and proficiency testing, please reach out to Chris and his company, Owl Testing, and they'll love to help you out and walk you through the process. For our audience, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I really appreciate having you with me this morning and look forward to another conversation. If you haven't done so, please like and subscribe to our channels, and really appreciate your feedback if you have any, and love to communicate with all of you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me this morning, Chris.
Thank you, Robin. I appreciate the opportunity to come on. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to the Localization Fireside Chat. I'm Robin Ayub,
Take the warmth of
host.
knowledge and
Join
renew
me
cultural
for
passion
captivating
with you.
conversations.
Keep exploring
with industry
Stay
leaders,
curious.
exploring
And until next time,
localization,
this is Robin
translation,
Ayub.
and global
Keep those
communication.
global conversations
Ignite
alive.
your curiosity.